afternoon. And some of you already met earlier on this morning, Katrina and Ina. So thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in today. So it's a pleasure to be invited to be here. And before I start, I would just like to give a bit of a trigger warning to everyone who's listening today. I'm going to speak about some of my life experiences, and they may well resonate with some of the viewers and listeners who are here today. So what I always say is that, you know, it's real life stuff. My experiences aren't any better or any worse than anyone else. So that's what connects with people. So if you feel you need to grab a cup of tea or anything like that, you know, unvideo yourself, go and grab a cup of tea or whatever. But I generally always say that the happy ending in this occasion is sitting right in front of you, okay? So I'm going to tell you a bit of my journey, and we'll all end up back here again. I'll make sure we all get back to this point again, okay? So, without further ado, as Ina has said, my name is Michael Byrne. I'm founder of that company, Lived Experience Trauma Support, and I'm also author of this book, Don't Believe Your Brain, which came out a couple of weeks ago. But more importantly, I'm 50 years old, I'm married, I have a 3-year-old son. So stop doing that mental arithmetic in your mind right now that's saying 50 and 3-year-old, what's going on there? It will all become apparent as we go through this. I was born in the Gorbals in 1969. Way back in the days when it was perfectly acceptable, someone there knows the Gorbals, when it was perfectly acceptable to be born in the household, and I was. And the early narrative of my life was that when I was born, my parents would tell me that the light bulb exploded, that I was a devil's child, that they were looking for sixes on my head. Pretty horrible narrative from a child at a child's age, and they thought it was funny, I thought it was horrendous. And my earliest fear and memories are all of fear and physical violence. I grew up in a very violent household and was verbally, emotionally and physically abused on a daily basis. And as an earliest memory as a 3-year-old, it was witnessing my mother and father physically fighting with each other. And I was terrified, like any 3-year-old would be. That continued on for a number of years. And other things I witnessed included my mother stabbing my father in the head. And on many occasions being proud of that, and often saying, if only I'd been, you know, a quarter of an inch deeper, he wouldn't be here by now. Other things I witnessed would be like my mother hospitalising my father, hitting him with a cooking pot. Again, kind of sounds funny, but not when you're such a young boy. I always used to get told that I was only ever happy when I was at school. And without offence to Anne, perhaps I'm about to say this, nobody for the Gorbals was ever very happy at school. And I certainly wasn't very happy at school. I was just safer at school than I was anywhere else. I just didn't realise that. So through those early years, as I said, the abuse perpetrated on me was pretty aggressive stuff, and it would be on a daily basis. However, I left school at 16 in 1985. There's no one here who remember 1985. We're all way too young for that, and before O-levels. The following month, I started school. I started a YTS. Again, nobody will remember YTSs. You're all too young. And started with Glasgow City Council, YTS. I had £27 a week, and I got a travel card to allow me to commute all the way around Glasgow. And I felt like the richest 16-year-old in Glasgow. Money in my pocket, and I could go anywhere I wanted in Glasgow. And that was great. And then I came home from work one night, and my father was strangling my mother. So I intervened, and threw the one and only punch I've ever thrown in my life, and got into a bit of an altercation with my father. And within a very short period of time, as they say in Big Brother, I was evicted from the household and could no longer stay in the household because of that punch. And things became difficult because I'm 16 years old, and you quickly realise that 27 quid a week and a trans card isn't going to get you very far when you're on your own. So I sofa surfed, or whatever it was called back then, and within a month or two got allowed back into the household. The relationship with my father was broken. He wouldn't talk to me, and we would try to avoid each other. And it's really hard to do that in a 3-bedroom flat in the Gorbals, but we managed it. If we seen each other on the street, we'd cross the road. So really toxic relationship, and it was no better with my mother either. You know, fast forward a couple of years, and in 1994, I got married. Probably in the same respect that when I was young and I was 5 years old, I went to school to avoid the trauma and everything that was going on in my household. I was probably doing the same thing when I was 24 to try and get out of the household again. And on my wedding day, my mother and father got a hold of me and said that they were going to divorce each other, which is just an incredible thing to do on anyone's wedding day. But that's what happened. And ironically enough, over the course of the next 2 years, my relationship with my father got better. By this point, and it's a complete coincidence, I was working for Glasgow City Housing at the time, and my father needed accommodation. I played no role whatsoever in getting him a wee flat or anything like that, but he ended up in a one-bedroom flat in the Gorbals. And my relationship over the next 2 years got better, and I was delighted with that. And then on Byrne's Day 1996, I was at a Byrne's do, I can't remember where it was in Glasgow, and came home, and my wife at the time said to me, you need to take a seat, the police are looking for you, which again, you know, is never a good thing when you're told that the cops are looking for you. And she told me, no, they're looking for you because your father's been murdered. And instantly walked me to my core. She said I had to get down to Gorbals police station, where my father had stayed in the Gorbals, and talk to them. So I went down there. They couldn't make any sense out of me, and I couldn't make any sense out of them. I went round to his flat, and it was all cordoned off the way you see things cordoned off with the yellow tape. And after a while, I went home. The next morning was a Friday morning, and I got my suit, my shirt, and my tie on, and I went to work. Incredibly, I went to work. What I now realise is that that's a learned behaviour from that 5-year-old boy who went to school to avoid having to deal with the trauma of what was going on in his life. I was now 25, 26, and I went to work the next morning. My boss at the time, who was a beautiful man, pretty much is the only person ever asked me, why are you here? You don't have to be here. I just told him I didn't know where I was meant to be, but could I get the afternoon off to go to Glasgow City Morgue and identify his body, which he did, obviously, gave me that afternoon off. The weekend followed, and I got a phone call from the police, and they came up to the house and took me to Aikenhead Road Police Station in Glasgow, fingerprinted me and questioned me for 3 hours about my father's murder. Pretty traumatic stuff, because it's never great being taken to the cells and fingerprinted and so on, particularly when you know you're innocent. And they focused more on the poor relationship rather than the good relationship. Over the course of the next month or so, a murder hunt ensued, and eventually after a month they caught the chap, and that allowed me to bury my father. A couple of months later, I think, there was a court case, and on the day of the court case, the chap pled guilty to manslaughter or culpable homicide, whatever it's called now. And on that day, he got 15 years sentence. Now, on that day, that was the highest sentence that had ever been awarded to anyone for that crime. And during the summing up by the judge, he'd said that my father's injuries were sustainable to being hit by a bus. But thankfully, he would have been unconscious within the first or second blow and died within 10 minutes. Information that I wish I'd never known, but he's got to sum it up. And what transpired was that my father had been drinking with this guy in his flat in the Gorbals and fallen asleep. When he woke up, this guy was stealing his telly. Now, for him, it was about 1996. You'll know that televisions aren't what they are just now. They were big, bulky things, and you had to be a strong man to carry them, or two men to carry them. And it transpired the guy was an ex-army boxer. So my father woke up, the guy was stealing his TV. My father was about 5'5", and the guy beat him to death. He beat him to death for a TV that was rented out of Radio Rentals of Granada, because again, back in the 90s, we certainly didn't have any money to have a TV and a video recorder. So he was murdered for that. And well, that's probably taken me about 6 or 7 minutes to tell you, but it's probably about 1.5 years of my life that I do not remember anything about other than everything I've just spoken about. But I know that I turned up for work every day. I turned up and pretended that I was okay, but inside I was broke. I didn't know how to manifest my feelings or my emotions or ask for help in any way, so I just put on a facade and let the world think that nothing was affecting me. Now, you know, the subject of my book is Don't Believe Your Brain, and I'm going to give you a lot of examples of, you know, when you shouldn't believe your brain, but one really good example of when you should. But my brain at that time was telling me that I can get through it. I don't need to talk to anyone. Nobody can help me. Nobody would understand, so don't tell anyone. And that was really the same from the childhood abuse as well. So I didn't open up and tell anyone. But what I did do was I started drinking. I started taking a lot of self-sabotaging tactics of not speaking to my wife at the time, and drinking and partying and just going missing for a few days. Because doing that killed the pain, numbed the pain. It meant I didn't have to deal with reality. But I never missed a day at work. Within a relatively short period of time, I was separated and divorced, as you can imagine. That sort of lifestyle just isn't conducive to working in a relationship. And I then found myself isolated and alone. I left the marital household and got a furnished flat somewhere in the south side of Glasgow. And with that came loneliness and isolation and self-sabotage again. I wanted to feel that something other than the pain I was in. And I continued on in that lifestyle for a couple of years. That was pretty much my fallback position, was to sabotage myself. And then after a couple of years, I got into a relationship with a girl. And after about a year and a half, she broke fantastic news to me that we were expecting twins. And that changed everything for me, because my father had been a twin, so I thought it was very serendipitous that life was coming around in a new cycle and I was going to be a father. And, you know, when you're about to have kids, you project into the future and believe what your life will be. Unfortunately, in November 2003, I got a phone call from her one Sunday morning saying that she had miscarried both of them the previous day. And that changed everything. Went to her house, we had a chat, and nothing made sense. Absolutely nothing. And anyone who's been there will know that feeling. And I did what most blokes would do. I went up to my mammy's to talk to her. And contrary to popular belief, homemade soup does not make everything good. It doesn't make everything better. And I went back home to my flat. And on a Monday morning, put my suit, shirt and tie on, and went back to work. Never spoke to anyone about it, and just buried it all again. And my relationship with the girl ended that day. We just decided that we would just try and heal ourselves separately. And everything from then on, you know, your relationship and your family is taken from you. So very difficult to deal with. And if I thought I'd self-sabotaged prior to that, I now partied like Paul Gascoigne, George Best, or whoever is in your age bracket of people that you remember being party animals. And I never missed a day at work. I continued to self-sabotage because I wanted to escape the pain that I was in, and that's exactly what I did. And I made a really good job of it. Every relationship I got into, I sabotaged. And anyone who got close to me, I pushed them away because I never wanted that expectation or that pain ever again. And I continued on in that lifestyle for a number of years. The irony of it all was that I was believing all these thoughts in my head. No one could help me, no one could fix me. I was only going to be poisonous to other people and so on. But the worse my private life was, the better my professional career was. I was escalating through the ranks within the housing department and housing associations because I was throwing myself into work and not seeking help. And then in 2010, I met my wife, my current wife, and I thought I'll make a go of this. After about 6 or 7 years of sabotaging everything, I'll try and change and make things work. And I did, tried my best. And then in 2012, we got married. And that proved to be really difficult for me because whilst I was at work, I could pretend. And whilst I was at home, I could pretend. But now being married and my wife moving in with me, I could not pretend to anyone. And that first year was really, really tough. Until we get to the 6th of November 2013, and my wife says to me, I'd really like us to move house. I'd like to be near my mother. And without any offence to anyone, no bloke really wants to hear that his wife wants to be near his mum or your mother-in-law. And no offence, please, to any of the women in the audience. I've seen it as a failure, obviously. So we did. We moved up to Steps in the north of Glasgow, and we put a deposit down on the house on the 6th of November. Now, number 9 is a big thing for me in my life. It's the number of my car. I was born in 1969. I was born in September. I was born on the 15th, and if you add 1 and 5 together, it's 6. You turn it upside down, it's a 9. That's extremes I'll go to try and get a 9 in my life. However, on the 29th of November 2013 was a day that was to change everything for me, and I found myself standing in a Clutha bar when a helicopter crashed in on top of us. And nothing prepares you for that. Whether it be child abuse, mother or father, loss of twins, nothing prepares you for what happens that night. And many things happened that night. I won't go into it this afternoon just to spare the dignity of a lot of people who were also there and perhaps not living any longer. But it changed everything for me. And it was very difficult. My first thought was that a car had hit the outside wall. My second thought was that the adjoining building had come in. And my third thought was, it really doesn't matter what it is. You need to make people safe. You need to get them out. So I did a lot of things that evening that I'm really happy with, and I'm happy that I was there to make a difference to people. But there was things that, even at that early stage, I knew that my brain wasn't going to function properly. By the Sunday, I had said to myself that I believed that I was meant to be there to help people, and I wasn't going to seek anyone's help. But I was already broke. I knew that I was broke. And on the Monday morning, I put my suit, shirt, my tie on, and I went into work. By this point, I was a director for a housing association. And I believed that everything my brain was telling me that I could get through this. Nobody can fix me. You'd be too embarrassed to tell anyone you're struggling. All of those normal emotions. But nobody ever went into work a couple of days after Clutha or the next working day. And my boss at the time never came and asked me how I was. The only people who came and asked me were all the staff that worked for me. And it was beautiful that they did. But every time they did, I felt like I was going to burst into tears. And I didn't want anyone to see that emotions. I believed that that was me showing failure and weakness and so on. So I ended up, I closed my office door and thought, if I just get through today, and then the Tuesday and then the Wednesday. I had the move to look forward to. This was November. I had to move house by the end of January. So I really just put all my concentrations into that, and I believed that I could just ignore everything going on around me and I would be okay. And that's exactly what I did. But then when we moved house at the end of January and I got into February, I was in a dangerous place because I had nothing to fill my mind with other than all the thoughts of the Clutha. So I reached out for help online because I was too ashamed to do it in person, and I enrolled for some CBT therapy and ended up getting some face-to-face therapy. However, I would only ever tell the therapist that I'd been in a Clutha. I wouldn't tell them about all the other stuff because I was too embarrassed. I believed my mind when it was telling me that I would be locked up, that people would think I was strange and I was a threat. And after a couple of months of CBT, the therapist stopped the therapy and said to me, this is more detrimental to you than more beneficial. So you need to seek psychological help and pharmaceuticals. That was something I wasn't willing to do. And I never did. I just buried it all. Now, later on that year, this is where it begins to get a wee bit like an EastEnders storyline, okay? So just bear with me if it's not already to you. That summer in 2014, my wife, we were on holiday, said to me, there's a certain way I look at you that your throat doesn't look right. I think you should go and get yourself checked out. I'm never going to go to my GP and get myself checked out. Hell will freeze over. But by the September, October, I did. And I learned a lot that day when I went into my GP surgery. I learned that when your doctor is really excited to see you when you confront him with your illness, it's not a good thing. He got very excited and said to me almost immediately, you have a tumour in your throat. It's extremely rare in men. I'll make an appointment for you to get to the Royal Infirmary. And to this day, I'm convinced that I'm sure he thought he was going to get in the British Medical Journal or something along those lines for having a guy coming in with a tumour. But what he did do was arrange an appointment for me with a consultant at the Royal Infirmary in Glasgow. And I went up to the Royal Infirmary for a biopsy. I'd managed to get to 46 or whatever. I didn't know what a biopsy was. Ashamedly, I didn't know what it was. Within 10 minutes of being there, I absolutely knew what a biopsy was. He told me to get undressed, put a gown on, and took a biopsy from my throat. He then says to me, put your clothes back on, and I'll send this test away for cancer. And that was the first time that anyone had mentioned that to me. I didn't think it was anything like that. And with that comes a bit of a body blow. Everyone will have encountered that when you hear it. Certainly a long time ago, no one even would have said cancer. It would be the big C, and we would all just dance around the word. And it kind of rocked me to my heels. I phoned my wife on the way back to my work, because obviously I went to work, and said, they think it might be cancer, but it's not. I don't want you worrying about it. I don't want MD worrying about it. It's okay. I'll be fine. And I lived my life like that for the next couple of months. It came back inconclusive, and they wanted to put me into emergency surgery, because if this was cancer, it was fairly dangerous for the location. So they arranged the surgery for, I think it was early December. And in those intervening weeks, I was relatively fit anyway, but I began running around Huggingfield Loch, for anyone who knows it, like Forrest Gump, and I started lifting weights like Arnold Schwarzenegger to get myself fit. And my mentality was, if I get fit, as soon as I'm out of that operation, I can be back at work and I can start to fool everyone that I'm okay again. And that's exactly what I did. The day of the operation, I went in, got the surgery, and I woke up in the most excruciating pain I've ever been in. And within an hour or so, I was happier than I'd ever been in. And that's the wonder of drugs. For the first time I'd ever experienced the wonder of morphine. But what that allowed me to do was to get up and about the ward. And I knew at that age, if I got up and about the ward, I could fool everyone into thinking that I was okay. And that's exactly what I did. By later on that day, the consultant had came back to me and said that he had taken a tumour out the size of an orange from my throat and that he would send it away to see if it was cancer. The only thing I asked him was, can I go home? And he said, well, I've actually heard that you've been out and about. Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you out because you've been up and around. And I knew at that point I'd managed to fool the guy again. Within 10 days, I went back to work without knowing if I had cancer or anything like that. All I was trying to do was show the world that I was okay. I was Superman and I wasn't broken. But I knew I was. A couple of days prior to Christmas, I was asked to go up and see the consultant. Went up and he gave me the all clear, but he had no idea where the tumour came from, what was its cause, and so on. And since then, many people will say it's because I kept all the trauma in that the tumour was bound to be in my throat, and I can understand that. But fundamentally, they didn't know. I went on back to work and I just continued my life on as normal. But in 2015, I started to have blackouts. And on one occasion, I came home from work, went upstairs, went to the loo, and woke up in a pool of blood. I'd fallen over and split my head open. And back up to the Royal Infirmary again. And they didn't x-ray me, they didn't want to do anything like that, and I didn't want them to do that. They just glued me back together, and I went back to work the next morning again, put my suit, my shirt, my tie on. And then later on in 2015, my wife wanted to have a conversation with me about beginning a family, and I didn't want to begin a family. I'd gotten so far with the trauma of 2003 and I never wanted to experience all of that again. And I said, no, I don't want to start a family. And within a couple of days, I realised that's a pretty selfish thing to do. And I did the thing that most of us do when you don't know the answer to something. I put it into Google. I Googled it. I Googled, is it perfectly normal for a guy to not want or be worried about becoming a father? And God bless the guy who put that question in before me, because somebody put that in and up came a whole load of answers. And all of these beautiful women had put, yes, it's perfectly normal, and the fact that you feel that way shows a level of maturity. And I thought, fantastic. And so I went home that night and I says to my wife, okay, right, let's go for it. Metaphorically, not actually at that moment in time. And we did. But in the background, I'd also done some research, and it said that only 5% of couples trying to conceive will conceive within the first month, and on average, it could be a year or more. And I'd fooled myself into thinking, I'll give it a go for a year, it won't happen, and I'll just say that's us, because I never wanted to feel that pain again. What I then realised after 1 month is that my wife and I are in that 5% category of becoming pregnant in the first month. And it was a bombshell. And the day I was told was the 6th of November, which is a 6, which is a 9 upside down, like I've already said. And we didn't say many words for that day. And for the next 9 months, it was very difficult for me. I believed that things weren't going to go positively. I always say my wife had a perfect pregnancy. I think that she would differ somewhat, but to me it was perfect. And then in July 16, my son was born. And it's the best day ever for every parent. It's the best day ever. However, almost immediately, my mind began to tell me that because I'd been abused as a child, I was going to abuse my child. I was going to physically abuse my son. And I was terrified of that. And I let those thoughts eat away at me, and I listened to them. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 months, I pretty much disengaged from my wife and my son, because I was so scared that I was going to become an abuser, and I absolutely didn't want to do that. I believed that the best thing to do was to distance myself. Now, I know that wasn't the best thing to do, but that's what my mind was telling me. And that's what I did. And then on the 1st of April 2017, I always say this, you know when the world's messing about with you, when your mental health breakdown begins on April Fool's Day in 2017, as a result of being in a crash in an Asda car park of all places. I was sitting stationary in an Asda car park watching this young boy and his father cross a pedestrian crossing, and this car hit me side on. I was sitting stationary, never seen him coming, hit me side on. I banged my head and got out and we exchanged details. I went in, continued on with my shopping as I was going to do, and went home. But I instantly felt unwell. I felt dizzy, and I could feel like the blood vessels in my neck were popping, and I knew I wasn't well. However, it was a Saturday, and on a Monday, I put my suit, shirt, and tie on, obviously, and went to work. And by the Thursday, I had to go to my GP. I couldn't stand up. Every time I stood up and got in my chair, I was falling over. And I managed to get to my GP, and he got me up to the Royal Infirmary again. He believed I was having a stroke. He couldn't believe I'd been this way for 5 days now or whatever. And that really became one of the worst days of my life, because my biggest fear was to be hospitalised. This is going to sound really silly. I know the difference between mental health and physical health, but I always believed that had I been admitted into hospital, they would do MRI scans on my mind and realise that I was so unwell that I was never going to be released again. That was my mindset at that point in time. So, over the course of the next few hours, they ran all sorts of tests, BBC, ECGs, ITVs, whatever they could do, and admitted me. And that evening, I kept saying to them, there's nothing wrong with me. I've got vertigo. That's why I'm dizzy, which I don't have vertigo, but I was ashamed, and I was begging them to let me out. They kept me in overnight, and the next day I begged to let me out again. And I was the world's worst patient. And I always say I was a bit like Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for anyone who's seen that movie, where Jack Nicholson continues to say, there's nothing wrong with me, it's all you guys. That was me, but I knew that it was me. So the next day, I was that much of a pain in the backside, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they told me the MRI machine was fully booked until the next week, and they wanted to keep me in, and I begged them to let me out. And they did. They gave me blood thinner medication, told me not to drive and not to go to work and come back the next week for an MRI. And I duly left. And on the Monday morning, I jumped in my car and I went to work. Again, try to pretend to the world that I'm okay. Went back for an MRI scan a week or two later, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. So yet again, almost like the tumour, but almost immediately I knew I was struggling with my mental health. I was having flashbacks, continual flashbacks. And what was going on in my mind was the bang of the car crash was taking me to the bang of the helicopter coming through the roof in the Clutha. The dead bodies that I seen that night were taking me to the day I had to go and identify my father's body. He was 48 when he was murdered, and I was just about to turn 48. Perfect storm. And I didn't know how to ask for help. I had no idea how to ask for help. And I was in my breakdown. So what then happened was that I then made a conscious or unconscious decision, whatever it may be, that I was going to self-destruct. I was going to self-destruct my professional career and my private life in an attempt that someone would stop me and say, you need help. Because I wasn't brave enough, or I kept hearing all these thoughts saying, no one will help you, don't ask for help, it's career suicide, it's a whole load of things. And over the next 4 or 5 months, that's exactly what I did. I went from being an excellent professional in my profession to someone who continually missed deadlines, undermined my chief executive, argued with anyone at the drop of a hat, all in a cry for help so that someone would say, stop. And then in January 2018, my chief executive called me into his office, and I believed that I was about to get the help that I needed, and he suspended me from my employment. And that was the last day I ever worked for anyone, that employer or anyone. But it put me in a really dangerous position, because for 43 years perhaps, whether it be school, whether it be employment, had always been my coping mechanism. Rightly or wrongly, it always had been. And now I was in a precarious position. The first phone call I made that day was to the Samaritans. It wasn't to any family or friends, it was to the Samaritans, because I knew that my lifeline was now very tenuous. And I couldn't understand them, they couldn't understand me. It was a Monday, and I thought, I can't hold on. I phoned my GP, and he said he could see me on Thursday. And I remember saying, I won't be here on Thursday. I don't think I can make Thursday. Eventually, I did make it to Thursday, and he gave me antidepressants and pretty much sent me on my way. But he made a referral to the Glasgow Psychological Trauma Centre, which is a specialist centre in the southwest side of Glasgow. But that was going to take about 5 months for me to get seen by a specialist. So the world was caving in on me, and I couldn't deal with it. I tried my best to live it on a daily basis, and by the beginning of May, I decided that I'd had enough, that I wanted to end my life. And as soon as I made that decision, I was happier than I'd ever been in my life, because I knew that there was going to be an end in sight to the pain that I was in. And leading up to that, I cut my grass within an inch of its life, and anybody that knows me, I hate cutting grass. I tidied up the house to within an inch of its life. All of the things that, in retrospect, were just preparations for not being here. But in my mind, what I was doing was preparing the house so that when the police came up and told my wife that I was no longer here, she wouldn't need to think I need to tidy the house up and all of those things. And it all made perfect sense to me. And I planned to do it on a Wednesday where my son would be watched by his gran for 8 hours, and I'd planned A, B, C, and D, and it was foolproof. However, I didn't really account for what was about to happen. And the night before I went to bed, I was extremely happy. I wasn't upset that I wasn't going to see my son and my wife the next day. I believed they would move on and have a better life. And then I woke up on the Wednesday morning, and my wife had got a text message from her mum, who was about to watch my son, saying she'd been unwell during that night. Could Michael just watch Blaine, who's my son? And I remember the conversation kind of went along the lines of, no, I can't, I'm busy today. And my wife said, well, what is it you're doing? I said, I can't tell you. She said, well, you're watching him then. And that whole evening pretty much changed everything for me, because I wasn't about to end my life whilst my son was in the house. But I knew I was in a dangerous place. This was about 8 a.m. in the morning, and I thought, just try and get till 9, then get till 10, then get till 11. And I pretty much lived the next few months on that hour-to-hour basis. A couple of days later, I spoke to my wife, and that didn't go well. As you can imagine, it was full of emotion, and she couldn't understand why I would want to leave her and my son. I spoke to my mate, and he's seen it from a man's perspective. Why would you want to do that? You've got quite a nice car, you've got quite a nice house, and you've got a wife and a Wayne. The total opposite. But I quickly realised that no one could understand me, and I believed that no one could understand me. And that was really my mindset at the time. However, things changed for me within the next couple of weeks. Because I believed no one would understand me, I started to write poetry. Now, it's rubbish, okay? I can send you links to it, we can do all of that stuff. I got a poetry book released, but it was cathartic for me to put my emotions and feelings into that poetry, because I didn't believe anyone could understand what I was trying to say. I thought they would understand better if I wrote it, and that's what I did. And there was some absurd scenes. I recall many times where I met my mate in a pub for an iron brew, and as we went in, I would give him my book of notes and say, there's my poems, read them, I'll go and get a couple of iron brews, and when I come back, you'll know where I am. And many times the two of us sitting huddling in a corner reading poetry. Not my thing, but that's what got me through. And also at the end of May, I got an appointment for the Glasgow Psychological Trauma Centre. And over the course of 2 days, they diagnosed me with complex PTSD. And I left on the second day, the happiest man alive to be diagnosed with a mental illness. I could have been Mary Poppins skipping out of that office that day, because finally I knew what was wrong. And it allowed me to find out all about the illness and all about me, and all of these fears that I'd had as a 3-year-old, and why as a 48-year-old man I still felt scared, and the fear of judgment. It didn't matter. And I researched it, I bought a book on it, researched it, and it changed everything. It was as if the author was writing my life story. And that changed everything for me. I then began to own the illness and not fear anyone's judgment, and understand that all of these things I've been through and how I felt and having that mental health breakdown is perfectly normal under the circumstances. And that changed everything. Once I had that mindset and I started to believe that I could overcome it, everything changed for me. Over the course of the next couple of months, I began to think that I could use my experience to help others, to help many others, and show them some hope, and hopefully inspire and motivate people that it is okay to struggle with your mental health, and you can overcome it and you have a purpose. And I was invited on many occasions to speak to a lot of big businesses, Barclays, RPS, and so on. And then on the 29th of November 2018, the 5th anniversary of the Clutha, I released a book of poems called Poems from a Mod. I'm a big Paul Weller fan, so hence it's called a mod. And on that day, I was doing a talk at the Aldona Hotel, and that day changed everything for me. There was a psychologist speaking in front of me, and now I know he didn't say this, but this is what I heard him say. And what I heard him say was, people think there's a magic bullet with mental illness. There isn't. You just have to wait your 4 or 5 months until you get seen, and we'll take it from there. Now, he didn't say that, but that's what I heard. And as soon as I heard that in my mind, everything changed. I believe, no, that's not true. I can make a difference. My experiences can make a difference. And I then went on and decided I'll set up my own business. And I'd never set up my own business before. I'd worked in salary for 30 odd years, and I went to Business Gateway, and I know we have Anne here from Business Gateway, and I went and learned how to set up my own business, and the help that I received from Business Gateway was phenomenal, it was fantastic, and I would highly recommend it. And that gave me the confidence to actually see it through. And I did, and I set up Lived Experience Trauma Support in April 2019, and it's been going ever since. But the one thing that I've done over the last couple of months is I've released this book. I've been working on this book for about a year now, and it's all about the negative thoughts that you have in your brain. I allowed my brain to take me to the edge of suicide because I believed everything that it told me. And I should never have done that. I just didn't know any better. So I've only got a couple of minutes left, but I want to tell you a fantastic story of what happens when you do believe in positive things that can happen. So I bought a book in 2012 called The Secret by a woman called Byrne. Same surname as me, but not related in any way, and I'm not on commission, I wish I was. But basically it's all about law of attraction. If you believe in positive things and good things, then that's what you'll see in your life. But when I was struggling with my mental health, I couldn't see that. However, when I bought the book in 2012, I read it and I thought it was mumbo jumbo. Didn't believe it, thought it was rubbish, not for me. But then I thought, I'll put it to the test. So I had tickets to go and see Paul Weller in Manhattan in May 2012. So I said to the universe, okay, if this book is true, I believe I'm going to meet Paul Weller on the 19th of May at 3 p.m. So I was that precise. And I went into work around about that time and I told everyone, I'm going to Manhattan to see him play live and I'm going to meet Paul Weller. Everyone thought I was absurd. So on the 17th of May, flew over to Manhattan, had tickets to see him for 3 nights in a row. And on the 17th of May, he played an intimate gig. And there was only about 100 people there. I went along, it was fantastic, but I was gutted that I didn't meet him. But then I reminded myself, you've believed you're going to meet him on the 19th. Why are you disappointed you didn't meet him on the 17th? And then on the 18th of May, I had tickets to see him play in the Kodak Theatre. Yeah, I know it's a bit stalkerish, but I had tickets to see him play. And went along that night, and a girl walked past me, and she had a T-shirt on saying King Tut's, which is a music venue in Glasgow. And as she walked past, I said, oh, cool T-shirt. And she responded to me in a Glaswegian accent, which is fantastic. We then had, she said to me, look, I'm here with my fiance, I'm here, blah, blah, blah. Why don't we all meet for a drink afterwards? And we're all from Glasgow, why not? So we did, we went to a bar in Manhattan somewhere. And a couple of minutes later, in walked Paul Weller's lead guitarist, a chap called Stevie Craddock. And if you ever saw the photo, I'm bear hugging this small guy. I'm broad Glaswegian accent saying, Stevie, how are you? And I said, let me buy you a drink. And he said, I'm only in for my cigarettes. So let me buy you them. And so anyway, I was blown away. And then I started to think, oh, maybe that's as close as I'm going to get to meeting Paul Weller. Then I reminded myself, no, you believed it's going to be the 19th. This is only the 18th. So we left after a while, went to another bar, Fifth Avenue, somewhere like that, and walked in, and there was all of Paul Weller's band, not Paul Weller. And I couldn't believe it. It's almost like incrementally getting closer to it. So we spent the night drinking away with them, having fun. And then the next morning, went for a bit of brunch. It was the 19th of May. And I said, this is the day I'm meeting Paul Weller. So my wife had said to me, where do you want to go to watch the football match? Because at 3 p.m. was the Chelsea-Bayern Munich Champions League final. 3 p.m. US time, or New York time was 8 p.m. here, so I knew that was the kickoff time. And I said, let's just go to that bar we were in last night. So we walked along 57th Street, cut down onto 56th Street, and I remember thinking, I'm going to meet Paul Weller here. I'm going to meet Paul Weller. And then incredibly, my wife says to me, Michael, there's Paul Weller. And sure enough, there was Paul Weller sitting in a restaurant called Ibrahana, an outdoor restaurant, and he was 10 feet away from me, sitting outdoors. Now, I'm a polite guy most of the time. I didn't want to interrupt him. I thought he was there with his wife and they were chatting with someone else. I don't want to be rude. But what I will do is I'll walk round the block, and if he catches my eye and I catch his eye, I'll go over and say hello. So I walked round the block, and as I was walking around, my wife said, "No, what are you going to say?" And I said, "I have no idea. Let me just be in the moment, and if it happens, it happens." And as I got to him, he looked over at me and he kind of did the stretchy thing, and I thought, I'm going over. I went over. Paul, how are you? Great to meet you. Sorry to interrupt you and your wife. Been a fan for 40 odd years or whatever. And he was beautiful with me. It was great. And I have a photograph of the two of us together. And it was great. And I did that Glasgow thing, probably the thing that we all do, is that I had tickets to see him that night. But as I walked away, I kind of said, right, mate, I'll see you tonight. Absurd. But I walked 50 yards down the road, and then I had to stop. And I bent over double. And my wife has got a photograph of that. And whenever I tell that to everyone, they always say to me, is that because you met Paul Weller? I said, no, it's because I believed that I was going to meet Paul Weller. So, don't believe your brain. Anything is possible when you believe. Ladies and gentlemen, that's me. I know that was a bit of a long story. Hopefully it ended on a high note. I'd be delighted to take any questions from anyone that may have any questions about mental health or anything in general.